Okay, welcome to this video. We're now going to be looking at section number 7, which is all around user needs, understanding who we are aiming our new software, our user interface for. Who are they? Because if we don't know who they are, we can't really understand what they need, because everyone's different. So in this section, rather than showing you the pages now, I just want to make these videos a little bit quicker and shorter and snappier for you. I'm just going to talk to you about these questions just because then you understand it and you can just go to the page that I'm identifying. So you have to look at page 14 to 17. So there's a few pages there, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's 4 sides. And everything you need for this section, section number 7, and user needs is on those 4 sides or 2 pages. And what you need to understand is, and you'll see there's 2 sections here. We've got 1 here, 2 here, and there's something else here for those extra marks, but we'll talk about that in a moment. The first thing you need to understand is the first paragraph and the second paragraph is the difference between GUIs and menus. Remember what we said? The marks for this research task is, first of all, you're talking about what proving that you understand what GUIs are, talking about the pros and cons, discussing those things, and so on and so forth, and having that distinction. And you give some examples. You've got some pictures in there as well of GUIs and menus being used in different appliances, from TVs and cars and fridges and freezers and computers and phones and so on and so forth. We're now going to look at how those 2 types of user interfaces can or don't meet the needs of different people. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about accessibility needs. So we're going to look at GUIs, and we're going to look at, and you can use more than one example here, ladies and gents. You could talk about the GUIs in a smartphone, PC, TV, or somewhere else. And again, if you're in my lessons, I've got some examples here. You can make reference to these. Again, you don't need screenshots for this section, from what I remember. Or you can just talk about it. So you can go back to this folder if you're in my class and watch those things to remind remind yourself about how they are helping people. And you know what? A lot of this is common sense. You just have to ask yourself, right, I'm looking at this video here. It's showing me this new TV. What do I like about it? What works? What doesn't? Are there too many clicks? Is it simple? Do I have to search for things? What is easy? What's hard? Is something too small? Is it too large? Why those bad things? So you have to go down this process. You are investigating something here. You are being almost a detective here. So you have to have that kind of eye when you're talking about these items here. So what you need to do is, when you're looking at a smartphone, PC or TV, the more you have, by the way, the higher your marks will be. You then have to ask yourself, okay, how is that smartphone or that PC or that TV? And you might have different answers for each one of these, because they're not all going to do it well. Some of these will be better than others, depending on which device you're using as an example. But how are they meeting these accessibility needs? What stuff are they doing for people who have visual impairments, hearing impairments, speech impairments, motor needs, and so on and so forth? People who need to see things slightly differently. Is there some kind of feature where it changes the colour or the font size? Is there some kind of feature that increases items that make it easier for them to hear what's being shown or is used on the phone or the TV or the PC? Is there something about speech, motor skills, cognitive skills? You need to address every single one of them. If need be, boys and girls, have these items as separate sentences where you say, okay, in this phone I can see that this is what this is doing for people who have hearing difficulties. Okay, so going back to this, you can see visual needs. Different people have different visual needs. These are the do's and these are the do nots or don'ts. Look at these pages and you'll see what the typical things that we should and shouldn't do when we're trying to meet those visual needs, or when we're trying to meet the hearing needs, that we should and shouldn't do them. So ask yourself, we're just going to focus on this section here. When you're looking at a phone, looking at those examples I have in the example folders, ask yourself, are they doing any of the stuff that we say they should do? And are they doing anything that we say they shouldn't do? Now, if they're doing any of the do's, that's good. You're going to say, here are the pros. This is what they're doing, and they're supposed to be doing this because this is what it does. This is why it's good. However, it is said that they shouldn't do this, and they shouldn't do that, and they shouldn't do this. But as you can see from the screenshot, if you want to use the screenshot, you can, but you don't have to. But as you can, or you can say, judging from this device, I don't know, Android device, phone, laptop, whatever it is, I can see that they've done this, and this is the reason why this is a problem. So you have to go through that list. So it's important that you have those pages in front of you so you can do that. Once you've done that, and you explained it, and you justified it, Remember, if you just identify it, you don't get any marks other than the first pass level. If you want to get higher than that, you want the B's and the A's, boys and girls, you have to explain and justify. Explain and justify. You need to say why you think what you're thinking. Okay? Once you've done that for the GUIs, you look for some examples of menus. You do the exact same thing all over again. So you go to the menu folder and look at the examples that I have there. Simple as that. Pick 2 or 3. Talk about how it is doing that job properly. Okay, and which of them do you think is doing that well? And what I'd like to see is that some of you will see there's a common theme. That between the two, one of them is really, really good for accessibility needs. Another one, not so good. I won't tell you which one it is because I want you to find that out and put it in here. Okay, but it is pretty obvious. Do the research, investigate into it, talk about your findings, put it in here and explain yourself. Now for the higher marks, you need to talk about skills levels and user demographics. Now, if you're in my class, we've talked about this already, or you will do, or we will be, sorry, even. But you need to talk about how different skills levels and demographics plays a big role in terms of how someone can and can't use any device. Some of you may know already that some of these things are going hand in hand, some of them don't. Skills level, for example, you can have someone who is born in this country. Okay, you can have someone who's born in this country, but they're now 70, 80, 90 years old. So they come from a different generation and they have never used some of the things that we're using right now. They're quite happy and they're using the old school phones that's got large buttons, physical buttons, and they use it just to make phone calls and only in emergency purposes. And that's completely fine. And so you're going to say their skill levels are different. They're not used to using certain items. So if they were given a touchscreen tablet, they may not know how to use it. They may need guidance and training. It's the same thing with, there I'm using an older example, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. I don't want to be, accused of being ageist here, but imagine some of you might be thinking about going to work soon, and let's just say you got hired by Phones for You. They have a system. They will have a screen where they enter all the information in. The staff have to then, anytime they make a sale, they have to write down the customer's information, the phone that they purchased, where they live, where the bill, the payments are going to come out from. All that stuff is going to put onto a system. Now, it's not going to look the same as what we're used to seeing here in school or on your computers. They all have their own bespoke, unique system with their own UI that's got their own house style and style design. If you're a new member of staff, it goes without saying that you're going to have to be given some training. Yeah, and you might be 16 to 20 or 30 years old. So, it's not just about age, it's whether you've used it before. So if you've never used it before, that's your skills level. You haven't got that experience. You haven't used it and therefore you don't know how to. So skills levels plays a huge role as to how someone is going to use it or not. Demographics is about, looking at the different age categories, the culture difference, language and things like that. Some of you may have heard the story already. If you haven't, then I'll go through it now. If you haven't, then please forgive me. But I explained in one of the lessons that my parents, they come from a different background. I was the first person in my family to be born in this country. My parents are originally from Bangladesh, and even till this day, they have very, very limited English language skills. They don't really know how to read English, and their usage on their experience on phones and laptops is very, very minimal. And growing up, I was the translator in the house. Anytime a letter came, I had to read it for them. Anytime a visitor came or we had to go somewhere, I had to translate for them. And the reason why I mention this is because, that's their demographic. They come from a different background. They came from a different side of the world, third world country, it's a poor country, very, very close to India. And, they never really had that experience of learning the language or found it very, very difficult. So, that is going to play a different role, and it's going to make a huge impact on how they can and can't use something. So if they were to go to a doctor's surgery and they have to make an appointment and they see a screen and they see a reception, you can pretty much guarantee they're going to go to the reception and speak to the person instead, because they have very, very basic English skills, language skills, and they can just pull together a string of sentences to say, look, I need an appointment. and they'll be booked. But they won't have a clue about whether they're making appointments, whether they've made an appointment by clicking a few buttons on the screen. Because even if they try to figure it out, they wouldn't understand whether it's been confirmed. They wouldn't really understand if they were successful in it or not. So even if they used it, they probably end up going to the reception anyway and asking, look, did that go through? So that then defeats the point. So culture plays a huge role, because depending on where they come from and how long they've been in a particular country, it can determine whether they're going to use something in a particular way or not. And the irony is, both my parents, they do have smartphones, and they know how to use WhatsApp. They know how to use WhatsApp. They know how to use Skype. But that's because they feel like they need to, because they speak to people from back home in Bangladesh. So they gained that experience. They've found the need for it, and therefore they feel confident enough to use the basic features. Saying that, they probably wouldn't know how to use every feature. They won't know how to change the status and things like that, because they don't use that. They don't use a story or anything like that. What they do is make WhatsApp calls, send messages, and maybe send a picture from time to time, because that's all they need. So having those in mind is very, very important. Again, this information for this section is in page 40 to 17. Be specific. Don't be lazy. Explain each one of these. If you don't have a sentence for each one of these talking about how the GUI from a smartphone, PC or TV is doing this for some visual needs, this for hearing needs, speech needs, motor, cognitive, and did the same thing for menus, and then talk about skills levels, and then talk about user demographics, then you are losing out on points. Okay?